My name is Fred Cook, and I drive school bus.
My name is Leanne Murchie, and I'm a school bus driver for TCAPS. It's been a very wonderful experience.
When I first hired in, one of the previous bus drivers told me that this particular job, driving a school bus, is the best job on earth. So I immediately took to it, and I have to agree that this is one of the best jobs that anyone can do.
What prompted me in the very beginning, I have a college degree, and she said, "You're in the safest vehicle in the world on the road." So I thought, well, I'm gonna try. Because I would be on the same time schedule as my own children. And when they were off, I was off. When holidays, I was there. So it was the best of both worlds. TCAPS offers jobs elsewhere within the system.
Between routes, I used to, for 12, 13 years, I did lunch duty over at East Middle School, and now I paint.
They're real good about finding people the hours that they need during the course of the day to make the job great. We have Mesa Insurance. The whole district has it. It's awesome. It's the best health insurance. We offer a 401k. There's a sign-on bonus. It's a win-win situation.
The most important thing, I think, coming to work at TCAPS is you understand that you are part of a team. It's a part of a collective,
We would like to welcome the audience and thank you for attending. Viewers may watch Board of Education meetings and board committee meetings live on TV 190 or online at tcaps.net/board. Recorded meetings may be viewed on demand at the same address. We do not have any public comments, so we are going to move on to procedural items. Number one is the draft committee meeting minutes from October 30th. Any corrections or changes? All right, those will stay as posted. Next is the district course catalog update, of which there is no update this month.
There are no updates at this time.
Moving on to informational items. So board curriculum learning series, professional learning in TCAPS. I'll turn it over to Kirsten Jones.
Okay, so Heidi and I are going to talk you through the learning series today. Yeah, you want me to go for it?
Good. I was like, where's the little clicker?
Yeah, I don't know.
I wonder if it's...
We might have a technical issue because I don't have the
So what we're hoping to talk about today is really our approach to professional learning.
There we go. Now it's working.
Here we go. That's okay. So professional learning is what we used to call professional development. There's been a shift at the state level to kind of reframe that language into being more aligned with what we actually are thinking and expecting of students. So professional learning in TCAPS. And really what we're hoping to accomplish today is that we talk about what makes professional learning successful. We talk a little bit about what are some of the barriers that we run into when we're talking about teacher development and their own learning, specifically related to time and calendar, and just also the number of competing demands I think that our teachers are faced with, and our staff and our principals are faced with when having to make decisions about what to engage in terms of professional learning. And then we're going to talk a little bit about our plan and our development cycle. So Heidi and I both are chairpersons of our professional learning team. And to be honest, the why of professional learning is pretty critical. These are two John Hattie is a well-known researcher who studies all kinds of instructional pedagogy and strategies and does a lot of metacognitive studies and meta-analysis on what successful schools do. He will overwhelmingly state that there is nothing that is more impactful in terms of student learning than having really outstanding teachers. Anita Archer, who is the founder of Explicit Instruction, has a pretty simple saying, how well you teach equals how well you learn. So the importance of teachers' expertise is huge. I have linked in a little video for us to watch that is John Hattie speaking. We're only going to watch like the first minute in 20 seconds.
Yeah, we have to. And the other thing to note here is that when they talk about teacher expertise, they're not talking about subject matter, which is what you would expect, right? Subject matter is important, but just that delivery of how you deliver high quality instruction.
I think that is really important to not focus on the subject matter because that should be a given,
Right.
but how you convey
Right.
what you know.
Your technique, your strategy.
Right.
Engagement. I mean, are you using small groups to deliver the information? You know, are you set and get? Are you standing in front of the room? We know that for sure that is not an engagement strategy that's going to work for students. And a lot of it is techniques about helping students get excited about their own learning and mastering really that orchestration. When you think about the productions you used to do, right? And think about all the preparation that goes into that. All that has to happen prior. And I always think about it goes back to those very foundations of a lesson plan. Like when you're setting up a lesson plan and you're deciding, you know, what you're going to do for student engagement, it's not only about the content, but how are you engaging students?
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
People in charge of education, a lot of senior people. And yeah, they're very smart people. They have the same kind of mission that all of us has. They truly want to make a difference. I don't see the kind of negative, jaundiced view that people have of these people. They truly want to make a difference. But what I struggle with is why do they do a lot of the stuff they do? And I think it's partly because of this politics of distraction. Sometimes it's easier to see things like buildings and new schools and new assessments and new smaller class sizes and better equipment and more technology. All the things that are below 0.4 on the effect size chart. And I think that we in schools also sometimes like the politics of distraction to raise these things because it gets away what from truly matters. Let's be honest. What truly matters is teachers' expertise. There's a lot of it out there. It's also very expensive to develop that expertise. And the resources should be going into building that expertise. It's harder to see. And like when you ask a question like, can you see a teacher's mind frame? It's hard to see. But that's truly what makes the difference. And so I would like to have a lot less about the politics of distraction. And every time people raise things that are below 0.4 on the effect size, we should pause and say, wait a moment, really, do we even want to debate that? Let's go to the other side, the politics of how we can get collective impact, how we can resource our schools to value the expertise that they have, to increase the expertise they have. And so I think it's a really worthwhile exercise sometimes to say, what are the key questions that we really should have as trigger points to say, stop, maybe that's not the best thing to talk about. I've spent many years of my life looking at teacher performance systems and probably like others reviewed probably 50, 100 of these.
I'd like to know his opinion on that.
So, really, what I think what Hattie is saying there is that we know that when it comes to students and improving their learning outcomes, who's in front of them matters, and how we train those folks beyond what they get in their 4-year degree matters. So when we're talking about what makes for effective professional development or professional learning, we are really talking about a structure that actually changes teacher practice to ultimately improve student learning outcomes. So what, as a system, do we have in place that we are doing to support creating expert teachers in their field? These are some of the criteria that we want to be kind of looking at anything we put in front of teachers through this lens. Is it sustainable? Is this something that we can engage with teachers in an ongoing way? We want to really move away from the idea of a one and done. I'm sure everyone has attended a conference, has been really excited about it, has come back, and because there's nothing ongoing or sustainable, it's sort of out of sight, out of mind. How are we helping teachers have the best understanding about the content they teach? How are we ensuring that they are actively participating in their own learning? Teachers aren't a whole lot different than students, right? We all do better when we are engaged in our own learning process. This is something, this collaboration within the job itself and the coaching and expert support, that's something we have spent a significant amount of time and resources on over the last 2 years. So we have now our teacher collaborative routines where we're releasing teachers for 2 hours a month to have an opportunity to engage in that collaborative conversation. We have engaged with coaches at the K-8 level. And then also, is our professional learning structured in a way where teachers can try new strategies and then have some opportunity to receive feedback and have some reflection? So when we're talking about what we're, again, putting in front of staff to try to build their expertise, we want to make sure that we're thinking through each of these kind of criteria.
And I think probably the most important part about this is that it's a planned approach. You know, it's not, you heard Kirsten reference that one and done. It's not that. It's about making sure we have, and you'll hear a little bit more about it later on, that 3 to 5 year plan that's tied to the strategic plan and makes sense. It's planned well in advance so we know we have these opportunities for teachers.
Just real quick, I think I know the answer to this question. I'm probably not going to figure out how to ask the question very well, but is there any connection with what we're trying to do and talking with universities in their teacher preparation, with when they graduate, they have better skills with
Go ahead.
Yeah,
figuring
yes.
out their way?
Yes,
you know?
we actually just had this conversation with Central Michigan University, but prior to that, it was with Ferris, and prior to that, it was with Grand Valley State University. And they recognize certainly the disconnect between what actual practice looks like and what they're actually working to support new teachers coming on board. One of the interesting conversations was really around the information around artificial intelligence and how that changes. And we had a few conversations about this earlier at board curriculum meetings, but just how that's changing how teachers go about setting up lessons and figuring out where they're concentrating their time on. If a teacher can go and get a basic draft or an outline of a lesson plan based on specific content and have a draft going versus spending all that time generating that, right? But you also know with AI, you have to have that double checking, like how are you going back to see, is that lesson plan meet all the needs when we talk about professional learning and delivery. But all the colleges are looking at ways to incorporate for sure more project-based learning into their development program for new teachers, looking at ways to think about how they need to be ready. And I think they're spending more time, John, feel free to step in, on getting students prepared and spending more time in the classroom versus sit and get.
Especially earlier. That was the one thing they had said. We had the
Yeah.
dean of Central Michigan come here and meet with us. And they had said that they're starting them much more in kind of a face-to-face, quasi-clinical,
Yes.
opportunities early on. First of all, to see if they like it or not, and if they don't like it, it's better to know now than when they're done with getting ready to student teach.
Right.
We've had that in the past. And so definitely, I think a lot more, they talked a lot about
Clinical
more
approach.
scenario kind of puts here's an example that they put them into, and they even have adults or even bring kids in sometimes to sit and have them, go through and give examples of what that looks like, and then it's videotaped often and then talked about and given feedback in multiple opportunities like that, which is very different than
Yeah.
the teacher prep I went through for sure, and I would say, in that aspect. So I think they're making strides. I still think there's a ways to go, but I think there's some strides being made with that.
And I think, I always hated that phrase of those who can do, those who can't teach.
Yeah.
And a lot of people fell into that mold, but I think it matters so much, the person in front of the students.
Oh,
Yeah, for
Well,
sure.
there isn't anything else that matters more, right?
Yeah. And Hattie's work will tell you that.
And
that is
the emphasis on not only the content, I referenced it earlier, not only the content, but that social emotional learning piece and behaviors in the classroom, and really how you make those connections to students to create a classroom that's collaborative and, engaging for students. So all those elements, back when we all were in school, it was only about, a lot about the content,
Right.
that we were gonna deliver to the kids. So that is a shift that we're seeing for sure.
You know what the irony is your university's teachers don't go through those molds
Right,
at all.
I know.
they don't.
I know.
And so you've almost got
That's because they can't.
enormous disconnect.
They need a student teach.
They just kept going to school.
Well, you teach.
Yeah.
Teach.
Yeah.
And it depends on how you interact with the students as to what you're accomplishing.
There is some of that beginning to change, though. So, I do know, for instance, at Western Michigan University, they just hired the recently left state superintendent of Kentucky to come in and become an instructional learning coach for faculty.
Wow.
That's right.
So I'm starting to see where they are starting to bring some instructional frameworks into the post-secondary world and working especially in some freshman comp courses. They're starting that movement. It's a long ways away, don't get me wrong. But I'm
it's-
starting to finally see where they are working on, the pedagogical component versus just sheer research and knowledge in a subject area, and I can say this, a PhD because you have it doesn't mean a darn thing as far as being able to teach kids. It doesn't mean you have a knowledge level of a core subject area, absolutely. But to your point, that's it. So I am grinning a little bit to starting to see that the eggshell has a crack in it at least to start that work. But long ways to go though, Beth.
One last comment, and then I'll let you finish your presentation. But I always wondered too, sitting in faculty meetings, being told of strategies for teaching, and there we are, like in the class.
In the direct lecture of the staff meeting.
Don't just
Yep.
preach to your kids, and I'm like,
Model.
come on,
Model
give
and
them-
demonstrate, yeah.
Exactly.
For sure.
So,
We'll see that later too.
with you guys doing this, I know that is happening during the professional learning.
Trying to make that shift for sure.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
Except that's what you actually get from us a lot too, Bueller, right? You
So
wanna-
this next piece is just really addressing the alignment to the strategic plan. So one thing that the professional learning team did was take a look at all of the places within the strategic plan where there would be a need for teachers to have some professional development or professional learning. So we kind of pulled out the big five, right? Like, let's try to narrow our focus, and we'll have explicit instruction in culture and climate, project-based learning, instructional rounds, and then different curricular initiatives. Oops. But what's important to note, if you could go back just one, within each of those areas could be a full year's worth of professional development, right? So when we're talking about the competing demands, we are talking about staff who has a limited amount of time. I think Heidi will share the restrictions and access to staff. So we only have a certain number of days that we can do professional learning with our staff. And we really have to go through and say, these are the 5 important things based on the strategic plan. But then you go into them, click to the next slide, you see in each one of those areas, there's all kinds of groups that we could be focusing on. It becomes harder to figure out how to make sure that our efforts are concentrated, specific, and meet those criteria that we described. Because if you focus on everything, you focus on nothing. So a lot of the work is trying to figure out what is so essential and critical that we think it's going to move the needle. We think it's actually going to change instructional practice to ultimately change outcomes in student learning. And so that's some of the work that this group has to wrestle with. And it's not easy work. It's actually really important, and it's deserving of a lot of time and dialogue. And it's hard to find consensus sometimes.
And we don't always get it right. We had a lot of reflections on the August professional development that occurred, right, based on some feedback we received from teachers, which was excellent feedback for us to get, right? So we looked at SRSD and ECRI, and we had some ELA training and science training, and all of our conversations in August for us were around, that's so much for teachers to do, right? How could we maybe select focus areas that will actually have more impact because we give them time to breathe a little bit and spend some time on the material. So we certainly try to get it right, but sometimes we always ask for feedback whenever it's over, and then we figure out what our next steps might be, because every moment you wait, it's a minute that you're not getting to a kid, but you also have to balance like how much capacity a teacher has to take in all that information. So certainly a race for sure. And this is what Kirsten was referencing. So our current model is we have district provided professional development 30 hours total. And we have, for mentees, they have 15 days over 3 years. And the professional learning opportunities we currently have right now are August professional development, which is 15 hours, regional staff development day, which equates to 6 hours, professional learning communities, which are 9 hours, and then we have staff meetings and teacher collaborative routines. So when you think about the grand scheme of things about how much professional development we are able to provide and support each year, there's not a lot of time to be able to do that, right? So our job is to be very strategic and laser focused on what is going to have the most impact and where are we going to get really good at making sure we're using these opportunities as best we can. And there might be some changes on like where do we have opportunities for sustained learning and professional development for our teachers, professional learning for our teachers. But this is our current state. This is where we're at right now as far as how much time we have to really dose out that plan. And you heard us reference earlier about not having it one and done, but how is it happening throughout the year in small doses so we're able to actually have impact and allow teachers time to digest that information.
And these times are negotiated, right?
Yes.
That's correct.
Yep.
By law, we have to provide 5 days. And so in order for a teacher to renew their certificate, they have to have over 5 years.
15 days over 3 years.
150 hours.
Yeah, for their certificate to be renewed. And so by law, we have to provide those days and those hours. And it is negotiated, and so that's where it sits on the current contract.
But I would say to your point, Lenoy, we recognize that we have to squeeze every drop of water from the rock. And so, and maybe you noticed the shift even in your tenure. Our staff meetings, I think, have really switched focus to be less kind of housekeeping, things that you could put out in a memo
yeah.
and do. And we're going to use staff meetings as an opportunity to continue our own professional learning with staff. Teacher collaborative routines, we're trying to have some shaping to those so that that's time spent ensuring that we're rowing in the right direction, the same direction. So the scheduling is a huge piece to all of this when you're trying to get through lots and lots of really vital, important information to
And so we kicked it off this year by actually strategizing the Big Five. And so this information was also shared and actually developed with the professional learning team and principals. And so when they're developing their staff meetings and providing professional learning to their staff, this is the focus. So that was a shift from prior, that we used to have, everybody was kind of doing their own thing. Not necessarily bad, but we are very much aligned across the district on supporting those 5 big areas. This I put up there just for you to see, to take a little glance at what a new teacher, and Megan, I don't know if you can click on that to make it bigger, but
It's hard to read.
yeah, this is, so when you click on it, you can open it up, but this is like a new teacher. So if you were a new teacher and you scroll down, these are all either the required PD or things they are participating as a new teacher. So whether it's a mentor-mentee meeting, whether it's a PLC opportunity, or teacher collaborative routines, or building meetings that they're having. So as a new teacher, they're getting a lot of opportunities for training, but it's about continuing to be strategic to make sure that we're aligning things that make sense. Those same 5 core ideas, are they aligned in what they're doing? So this was an example of the number of hours that a new teacher might get throughout their first 3 years of teaching. So each year, this is a 1-year plan right now, but they would have one of these each year. And then the opportunity on the bottom is then they would also add in their building specific professional learning, or if they've attended any conferences. So we really try to front load a lot of the work for our new teachers on best practice that we're seeing in alignment to the strategic plan goals. All right. And then I added this to the presentation just to talk a little bit about kind of like the order we go into when we're developing a vision for success for our professional learning plan timeline. So if you scroll, I think you can scroll into it, but you guys can take some time to look at it. But it really starts with that strategic focus. We've done a good job making sure we keep that at the forefront the last few years with our strategic plan that was developed, that you guys developed, as well as with that Michigan Integrated Continuous Improvement Plan, that MyKIP plan, with the use of those comprehensive needs analysis at building level to really drive and identify the needs that are happening within the building. You'll also see us reference that is a 3 to 5 year process, and it really starts in January. Most people think, a lot of times in May and June, you're thinking about what your strategy might be, but we in January actually already looking at and having buildings develop their comprehensive needs analysis to identify common areas and themes that we see that they might need to look at for developing improvement goals on. So then we move into February, where we actually design that implementation plan and develop that 3 to 5 year plan, knowing that it's always continuous improvement. And this is a change from the past, right? In the past, we would design a plan, and every year we would come back and design a new plan. So our goal is, even though there might be adjustments based on feedback, that 3 to 5 year implementation plan would be in place for us to see and make adjustments to, and not have questions on where our focus is. The other area that has become very important part of ours is that readiness, making sure buildings are ready, leaders are ready with that high quality instruction and training and best practice. So what does that readiness look like? Because we know it can look different by building and by principal, right? So how are we making sure we're supporting buildings with that readiness piece? And then as you go down the list, you'll see that ongoing support, and that's that conversation we had earlier about it is not a one and done as far as information and providing professional learning. It's what is the plan throughout the entire year, and that 3 to 5 year plan. On going back to the next, number 5 really is that providing that collaboration time, which you'll see in professional learning communities and those TCR days that teachers are able to use as it relates to those strategic plan goals that we have. And then making sure we have the right people at the table. And Flanoy, you probably remember this. Like, how are we making sure as a whole system we're getting everybody at the table and having those conversations about where we're headed for professional learning, and training. And so making sure we have administrators, key leaders in the district, teachers at the table in our professional learning team to make sure we are answering those questions and providing adequate support for those goals. Next step is you'll see us, we get to in February, we're back at evaluating and reflecting. So what are the milestones that we hit? What went very well? What did not go well? And then what are our next steps to actually look at that? And then if you scroll down a little bit further, you will see that we will always take time to celebrate, and that's what you see at the end of these meetings all the time, to highlight successes that we have. So for sure, in some areas, we would have excellent things to reflect upon and show growth along the way with our professional learning plan and our strategic plan goals. And then after the success, then again, you go back and you review and adjust and reflect on what are our next steps, what went well, what maybe we need to say that actually isn't on our plate anymore, and what do we need to add to make it a better plan. And that goes through that process of developing needs assessments again, evaluating what steps are next, and drawing from the data that we have. So that's another important piece. And the very last one is simply making sure we're always informing and publishing. So what does that communication and transparency look like? So are we presenting that plan and making sure staff, students, you are all aware of what that implementation plan and professional learning plan is for the year. So that's kind of like an overview of kind of what our year looks like. And normally, I thought it was important because normally you would think some of that occurs at the end of the year when we're actually backing it way up. We have that in collaboration with our conversations about RSDD Day, which is the Regional Staff Development Day, and how we're going to actually probably, that plan is going to help us create our plan a little bit better. So they're going to back up their timeline on developing what they may provide for that Regional Staff Development Day, which will actually help us align our professional learning plan a little bit better. Okay.
Benoit, to your, if you look at that third step, it says ensure training and presenters model the high quality
Yes.
strategies and literacy. So an example of this I think is happening with our elementary principals who are engaging teachers in explicit instruction learning this year. And they are asked to, part of how they present information is to model the same strategies with their teachers that they're expecting teachers to in turn model with students. And so you're trying to really set that stage of this is what that looks like.
Right.
Yep, and the other piece is that support piece. So like, do we have coaches in place to keep that going throughout the year to monitor for success and figure out where support is needed? Thank you. There we go. Now on to some fun stuff here. We are back to the first week in December of the Hour of Code and Computer Science Week. So you will see again, last year we had, I think, over 5,000 students participated in Hour of Code. So we are back on that again this year, recognizing that it's not only Hour of Code, a one and done, right? We talk about that, but it's also Computer Science Week. And so this time we have we have some excitement around, we have Super Science Saturday to end Computer Science Week, which will be great for our kids. And then we also have opportunities for prizes, and we had pizza donations from Charles and Reed for the pizza party, so we're super excited about that. Hour of Code, again, is Super Science Saturday, Hour of Code, so that will be a great opportunity for students 4 years old. Is that right? Do I have it right on there? Yeah,
Yeah.
ages 4 to 14 to participate in Hour of Code. So lots of different opportunities around the district. You'll see a lot of social media going out. I know Megan was working on that today, so excited to offer that to our teachers and students this year, and also recognize that that's just one opportunity for highlights, but we also have lots of different opportunities in computer science to take advantage of throughout the year, not just during that week.
And that's all at Central?
Central is Super Science Saturday, yes, yep.
Not both high schools.
Well, the TC Titans robotics team participates as well, but that is a Raptors sponsored, put together event. So the robotics team at Central High leads that, puts it on, and the team from the West Side helps. It's a great event. We had, I think we doubled the number of students that were there every year almost. So it's a pretty good size event. Well, you were there last year. Yeah.
Were you doing the slime or were you doing buckets?
I was getting extra supplies because we were running out. So I was on my way
You were the
to
baking
town
soda
to
guy?
get, yes, baking soda and
Vinegar,
salt
whatever.
and different things. So that was my job.
It was good. It was fun. Now we're on to celebrations.
All right, lots to celebrate. It'll be a team effort here, but the first one is Native American Heritage Month. So Summer Baldwin, our Indigenous Education Coordinator, has been going around to all the schools and really sharing stories, displays, different activities. And this is a picture from Long Lake Elementary where students were celebrating Native American Heritage Month. The second one is Art Club at Blair. So this is some students that started the art club. It was the first of the month, right? The first of November. And again, thanks to the staff members who put this on, huge success at Blair. The next one is our National STEM Day. Heidi, were you there? Did you want to highlight something from there?
National STEM Day, these were some of the different projects they had going on throughout the district. I had teachers send in pictures, and if they send in pictures, I kind of highlighted them on National STEM Day. Lots of good stuff going on.
All right, the next one Kirsten's going to highlight because I think you attended this one.
It was our English learner, or EL, family potluck. This was the first time that we were able to do a family potluck since COVID. It was actually very well attended. There were probably 50 to 60 students present of our, we have about 200 kids, or a little less than 200 kids that are EL students. So lots of great food, really good time. Want to give a shout out to all of our EL assistants, because all of them were in attendance, helping with some translation services, and it was just a really special day.
And the Veterans Day celebration. So Veterans Day was the 11th. So Connie Taylor and I were able to go around for year number 2 and celebrate all of our staff member veterans. Along with that, we had Long Lake Elementary. I believe this is their second or third year. And they had an honor guard and veterans there as well. And they collect candy donations, and they also send those to the troops overseas with letters in addition to that. So that was really a cool experience. And then our Montessori 8th graders got to visit the Career Tech Center just to explore future learning opportunities. And they learned about art, aviation, video, web design, and more opportunities that they have to them once they become high school students. And I think second to last one, our West Middle School guitars at lunch. So I want to thank Eileen from our music department for coordinating this, the donation, the 7th grade students who are enjoying a chance to listen and play and check out what it's like to get involved with playing guitar. And it's really an opportunity that started to grow among students, not just looking for musical talent, but just students building connections and confidence with each other. So we're really excited about that initiative at West Middle. And West Senior High's Students of the Week. So we listed those here. These are students that model or recognize Titans for modeling portrait of a graduate characteristics. So congratulations to these West Senior High Students of the Week. Oh, I forgot one more. And we had 8 female students from Central attend the Michigan Association of Secondary School Principals Conference with their Student Senate advisor and Jesse Houghton, the principal at Central High School. And again, this is for teen female student leaders that got to attend the principals conference. So it's with other teen leaders from around the state.
Cool.
Lots of cool stuff happening all over the district last month. Our next meeting is January 2nd. This might be a record meeting.
Okay.
Unless there's questions.
I have none. Good, none. All right. Thank you very much, everybody.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, our next meeting is going to be Tuesday, January 2nd at 8:30 a.m. We do have a time change going into the new year. So we'll shift to morning meetings at 8:30.
And
So
we're going to ask all the snow to only come later in the day.
that's right. Only snowing afternoon.
I'm all for that.
That's right.
I bet you are. Less
That's
phone
right.
calls.
Less 5 a.m. phone calls, I'll take it.
Yeah, exactly. All right, thank you.
Thank
Meeting
you.
adjourned.
All right.